welcome guys. In this video we'll look at the Unit 1 and 2 sample exam paper for math methods. So we'll be looking at the non-technology paper today. So question 1, consider the function f of x equals 3 sine 2x. State the amplitude of f of x. So this number is going to be the amplitude. Determine the period of f of x. So the period is given by 2 pi divided by the number before x in your brackets. So over 2, that's just pi. Sketch the graph of f of x for between 0 and 2 pi. Alright. So our period is pi. So you can start there. This can be pi. This can be 2 pi. And we know that a regular sine graph is 0 at y equals 0. And we know that a regular sine graph looks like this, where it's between 0, pi, and 2 pi. So this is just y equals sine x. But our amplitude is going to be 3. So we're going to go to 3 instead of 1. And instead of going from 0 to 2 pi, it's going to go 0 to pi. So it's essentially going to do this. And so this is going to be pi on 2. This will be 3 pi on 2. So let's mark that in. This is -3 here. You know that it's going to peak at pi on 4. And peak at -3 pi on 4. So if I put that there, I put that here, it's going to be similar. This will be 1 pi on 4. 3 pi on 4. And again, it's gonna peak there, be at 0 there, and peak here. So let's draw that in now. And that's between 0 and 2 pi. So this is our x, this is our y. Alright. Question 2. Solve log 327 plus log 8 1/8 minus log 16/4 equals log 4 of x. Alright, well, we know that this really means 3 to the power of something equals 27. So 3 cubed equals 27. So we can write this as 3 plus this really means 8 to the power of something gives us 1 on 8. So it's going to be -1 minus, that means 16 to the power of something equals 4, and that's going to be half. So square root of 16 equals log 4 of x. So this means 4 to the power of something gives us x, and that something is this. So let's solve this. This is going to be 3 minus 1, which is 2, minus half. So it's going to be 1.5. So we want to know 4 to the power of 3 over 2, because that's what that is, equals x. This is the same as doing 4 cubed and then square rooting it. So 4 cubed is 64 to the power of half equals x. So x is going to be 8. Question 3. Determine the derivatives of the following functions. Do not simplify. Alright, so for a, so here we can do 2 times 4x to the 4 minus 1, which is 3, minus 3 times 2 times x to the 1. Now, this is the same as having 5x to the minus 1. So we can derive that to become minus 5 times 1, x to the negative 2, and the constant disappears, which is the same as 8x cubed minus 6x minus 5 over x squared. B, so for this we're going to use chain rule, and so it's going to be 5 times the bracket raised to 5 minus 1, which is 4, multiplied by the derivative of the bracket, which is 3x squared plus 1. We don't have to simplify as it's not asking us to. C, so for this we're going to use product rule because there's two things being multiplied together. So our u is 2x squared plus 3, and our v is x minus 1 raised to half. So our u dash is going to be 4x, and our v dash is going to be half x minus 1 raised to negative half times negative 1, which is 1 over x minus 1 raised to half. So we know that the derivative is given by u dash v plus uv dash. That's going to be 4x times x minus 1 raised to half plus u v dash, so multiplied by this, over x minus 1 raised to half. Again, we don't have to simplify, so we can leave it like this. D, for this we can use quotient rule, which tells us that y dash is u dash v minus uv dash over v squared. And our u in this case is 1 minus x, and our v is x cubed minus 3. So our u dash is going to be negative 1, and our v dash is going to be 3x squared. So our y dash will be u dash v, which is negative 1 times x cubed minus 3 minus u times v dash all over v squared. So it's going to be negative 1 and that's it. Question 4. Part of the graph of f of x equals ax cubed minus 6x squared is shown below. The point P lies on the graph of f of x. At point P, x equals 1. The graph of f of x has a gradient of 3 at point P. Determine the value of a. So if the graph of f of x has a gradient of 3 at point P, that means its derivative at point P, that means f dash at 1 equals 3. So let's differentiate x first. That's going to be 3ax squared minus 12x. And when we sub in 1, we know that it equals 3. So 3 equals 3a 1 squared minus 12 times 1, and that's going to be 3a minus 12, so 15 equals 3a, and a equals 5. The following table shows the probability distribution of a discrete random variable x. Determine the value of a. Well, we know that probabilities need to add up to 1, so 0.3 plus a plus 2a plus 0.1 equals 1. So this is a, and for b, we want to determine e of x. So we know that the expected value, or E of x, is given by x multiplied by P of x added up for all of them. So that's going to be 0 times 0.3 plus 2 times 0.2 plus 5 times 2a, which is 0.4 times 9, plus 9 times 0.1. That's going to be 0 plus 0.4 plus 2 plus 0.9, and that's going to be 3.3. Question 6. Determine solutions for the following equations in the interval x between 0 and 2 pi. So for a, if we add 1 on both sides, we're going to get 2 sine x equals 1. Dividing by 2, we're going to get sine x equals a half. So looking at our table, we know that sine 0 is 0. So we go 2, 3, 4. Square root everything and divide by 2. So this is a half, and it's sine of pi on 6, that equals a half. So x equals pi on 6. Now looking at our unit circle, this is pi on 6, and that's when sine equals half. So this vertical component equals half. The other time it will also equal half is when this is pi on 6, and as an angle that's the same as pi minus pi on 6, which is 5 pi on 6. So pi on 6 and 5 pi on 6. So for sine, remember sine theta is the same as sine pi minus theta. Adding cos x to both sides, we're going to get 2 cos squared x equals cos x. Then if I divide by cos x on both sides, we're going to have 2 cos x equals 1 and cos x equals a half. Now if we continue with our table for cos x, it's the opposite of sine x, so we write 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, square root everything, and divide by 2. So cos x equals a half for pi on 3. So x is going to be pi on 3. And again, looking at our unit circle, when that's pi on 3, this horizontal component of it equals half. And if this was also pi on 3, then the horizontal component of this line would also be half. So to get our second angle, we need to do 2 pi minus pi on 3, which is going to be 1, 2 pi on 3, or 5 pi on 3. And an easy way to know that is cos theta is the same as cos 2 pi minus theta. Determine the function for the graph below. Use mathematical reasoning to justify your response. Well, this looks like a cosine or a sine graph, and because the middle of the graph is at 0, I'm going to write it as a sine graph because sine 0 is 0. And let's look at the amplitude. So it's going from 1 down to -7. So the amplitude is going to be 1 minus -7 divided by 2, which is 8 over 2, which is 4. The period for this function is pi. So our b value is going to be 2 pi on pi, which is 2. And there's no offset, so it's just 2x. And our vertical movement is we've moved from being at 0 down to -3. So this will be -3. So we want to use mathematical reasoning to justify our response. So we can say a general form for a sine graph looks like this, where A is the amplitude, which in this case is 4, sine. C gives us the horizontal shift, which in this case is 0, so our C is 0. And B is the period (2 pi over the period), and the period for this graph is pi, so which will be 2. And D is our vertical shift, and in this case we're moving from 0 to -3, so the shift is -3. So we're gonna write -3. Raoul and Alice play 2 games of tennis. The probability that Raoul wins the first game is 7 on 9. If Raoul wins the first game, the probability that he wins the second game is 5 on 7. If Raoul loses the first game, the probability that he wins the second game is 2 on 3. Complete the following tree diagram. Well, we know the probability on the same branch has to add up to 1. So as this is 7 on 9, this is going to be 2 over 9. And this will be 2 over 7, and this will be 1 over 3. Now B, calculate the probability that Raoul wins the first game and Alice wins the second game. So Raoul wins the first game and Alice wins the second game. So for this, we just need to multiply their probabilities together. So that's 7 on 9 times 2 over 7, which will be 2 over 9. C, given that Raoul wins at least one game, calculate the probability that he wins both games. So this is a conditional probability question where we want to know if he wins both games, given he wins one. So first we need to find the probability that he wins one game. So probability that he wins at least one game is going to be 1 minus losing both games, which is 1 minus 2 over 9 times 1/3, which is 1 minus 2 over 27, which is 25 over 27. And probability that he wins both games is 7/9 times 5/7. It's 5 on 9. So it's going to be 5 on 9 divided by 25 on 27, just 5 on 9 times 27 on 25, just 3/5. A curve has the function y equals x to the 4 plus 8x squared minus 20x plus 8. Show that the only stationary point for this function is a minimum. So the minimum point will occur when the derivative equals 0. So let's find that first. divide by 4 throughout. (5), 1, -5, and -1 are all factors of -5. So I'm going to check if 1 is a solution. So 1 plus 4. Yep. So we have a stationary point at x equals 1. Now, if min gradient before 1 will be decreasing and after 1 will be increasing. So will be negative and will be positive. So let's sub in x equals 0 in f dash of x, and we have -20, and let's sub in x equals 2 in f dash of x, and we have 4 times 2 cubed, 16 times 2 minus 20, which is 8 times 4, 32, plus 32 minus 20, which is 44. So we have a decreasing gradient at 0, and then we have a stationary point at x equals 1, and then at x equals 2 we have an increasing gradient. So that's why it's a minimum point at x equals 1, as it's negative here and positive here.